I saw Kriparian's video on this, and Kriparian was reacting to a guy called F's with Farham. I hope I'm getting the pronunciation of that right. In which they're talking about item rarity. I'm sure Dreamcore is going to talk about item rarity as well. And Crip's opinion, in fact, the title of his video, I think, was Item Rarity is Cringe, for instance. So that's kind of what I'm sure this discussion is going to be talking about. I have my own opinions on item rarity. Dreamcore normally does pretty good stuff, so we're going to give it a like. Let's see.
Exile 2 has a massive loot problem right now, and in this video I'll go over what is, in my opinion, the biggest contributing factor. And this issue affects pretty much everyone that plays the game, whether you're a high-end juicer or a more casual player, you're going to be impacted by this. And that is item rarity, because of course it is. This stat is very problematic because of exactly how it works. So rarity essentially refers to the rarity tier. It's shared across a few systems like monsters and items. For example, normal is the most basic form, then you have magic or blue, and then rare or yellow, and then unique. Normal is the most common rarity, whilst unique is the least common rarity.
It feels it feels the opposite to me. I feel like rare is the most common, magic is the second most common, and white is the rarest. But of course, that's mapping, right? Obviously, through the campaign, it feels exactly what he's saying. But like to me, when I start mapping, like it feels the opposite. It feels like there's rare everywhere. The occasional blue is like, oh, good, I got a blue. Maybe hopefully it rolled well. And then white is just like giga rare. When you get a white piece, you're like, oh, thank God, maybe it can actually like slam something good on it.
In the case of items, you can obtain a stat known as increased item rarity or increased rarity of items found, commonly abbreviated to IIR. Increasing this stat will improve the chance for items to upgrade in rarity tiers. So by improving your item rarity stat, you'll essentially see less normal items and see more magic, rare, and unique items. No problems so far, but then we get onto another system within item rarity known as item tiering. So the item tiering system is what's used to improve the chance of scaling up rarity on an item, but it also does a number of other things. Firstly, it creates the chance for unidentified items to drop with a tier, 2 through 5.
I thought this was a really cool system before the launch of the game. Now, after having played forever, I get to a situation where tier 5 drops, and I just kind of roll my eyes a little bit, because I just, I feel like 9 times out of 10, it's tier 5, but it's still dog shit. That's how it feels to me. If I get a magic tier 5 on a good base that I like, occasionally I'm excited by that. Outside of that, I don't think the tiers have ever really made me feel, I know they might mathematically mean something, I'm not arguing that, but in terms of when I see it, like the dopamine of it, I don't know if I've ever really felt like I care at all about the tier system. Like, I don't think I would put any focus into making sure I get more tiered gear, is the way I'd put this. It's like, oh, more tier 5s, yay. Don't care. Like that, so I wouldn't even keep it in my thought process, first of all. Before, he might have an opinion the tier 5s are great and the rarity makes tier 5s more common, so appears some. I don't know. We're going to get to that. But like, I'm just thinking about, as a consumer playing the game, how do I think about it now? I actually just don't care about the tiers at all. Like, that's pretty much where I'm currently at with it.
Obtaining more and more increased item rarity will provide a higher chance to see higher tiers in this system. So with more rarity, you'll see less tier 2s and more tier 3s, for example. The dropped unidentified item tier relates to the modifiers on the item upon being identified, with higher tiered items culling more lower level modifiers, which results in identified items with higher level modifiers on average. Now, this part of the item tiering system is actually very good, and it's exactly what you'd expect from item rarity, because items are not only made up from their rarity, but they also have modifiers which has a weighting system, with some modifiers being much rarer than others as a result of having lower weight.
I like the effect it does, but I often feel like I still get bad stats. Magic ones I'm more excited by. Rares, I think, are more of a problem in rares, which is like I get rare tier 5, I don't care. And that's mostly because rares like basically aren't as good as magic. Like, you want magics so you can slam on stuff with essences and then do like a bone, like a jawbone or something, and then try the fracture maybe so you can craft something. So typically I want magics more than I want rares. So that's probably part of the reason why I feel that way. The other part is I would agree with what I see in chat. The item level culling is still too low. That's kind of how I feel about it too. I feel like I still very often get bad sets. It's almost like, remember when I did that, like I did like a perfect chaos, and didn't I slam a tier 6 or like tier 6 flat lightning or something with a perfect exalt? And yeah, it was perfect exalt, not chaos. And I was just like, why? Like I don't like, why would I do that? You know what I mean? Like, why would I spend all the money to do it? Like, I would just slam a normal one and hope I get lucky. It's kind of the same feeling. Again, the math could be like, I could be just mathematically wrong. I understand that there's gonna be people that disagree, but like that's how it feels to engage with it. It's like I slam it perfect, I get a tier 6. I think, why, what the fuck, basically. And this is sort of how I feel about like the tier 5 system. I'll still get a mid tier 5 unusable or something. I'm just like, okay, well that's it leaves a bad taste in the mouth for ID and tier 5s.
So it makes sense that investing into
SSF
item
better,
rarity
sure.
would yield items of higher rarity, not just in terms of their actual rarity, but also their modifiers as well. However,
like I would actually prefer tier 5s to be way rarer, but then way stronger. So like if you made tier 5s 10 times rarer, where instead of seeing a tier 5 like multiple times a map, I see one like every 3 maps, but when I see it, I know it's like a tier 2 or tier 1. I feel like I would like that system better than identifying a bunch of garbage tier 5s, because I'm kind of at the point like I don't really even want to pick up tier 5. Like I just kind of don't care. And SSF, yeah, probably, it still has more weight to it, but like currently in the game, I guess I'm playing SSF now, but like when I was playing trade, like I don't care about tier 5s literally at all, which is kind of a bummer.
Item tiering system also does something else. It affects currency drops. And in my opinion, this is the absolute worst design decision that has ever been made for Path of Exile 2.
Oh, he's got feelings
So
about
firstly,
it.
currency items do not have a visible rarity tier like items do. And for players, the only real way to determine how rare a currency item is to play a lot and notice the scarcity of currency drops compared to others, or have it indicated to you by a loot filter that makes a sound that you may not have heard all that often, or by looking at the currency exchange and comparing the gold cost of exchanging, which is how these rarity tiers have been estimated here on the wiki page. And obviously this list is currently missing the new greater and perfect currencies, but you can see exactly what is going on here. You have rarity tiers just like with items, but these tiers are hidden. So increasing your item rarity improves the chance for dropped currency items to upgrade in tier. For example, a Wisdom Scroll upgrading to a Transmute, or a Regal upgrading to a Divine Orb or an Orb of Annulment. Or if you're really lucky, it could be an Orb of Chance upgrading into a Mirror of Kalandra.
Yeah, right. Like this is ever gonna happen to me, dude. The day I get a Mirror of Kalandra, I'm gifting like anybody. You guys can pick a streamer. I'll gift them like 200 subs or something, because it's like this will never happen to me.
Notably, these tiers are separate between the different types of currency. For example, normal currency or socket currency. Now here's the thing. Currency has two primary use cases. The first one is the obvious one, crafting. You use the currency item exactly as it was intended to be used, to craft items. The second is trading. You trade the currency item, valued in its crafting potential, to someone else to get something in return that you value. It's important to distinguish these two use cases because of their impact on SSF and trade. In SSF, only the first use case is important because obviously you can't trade. However, that doesn't make currency any less valuable. In fact, if anything, it means that you're more pressed to loot the currency that you need to be able to actually craft good items. Meanwhile, in Trade League, both use cases apply. You need currency to either craft good items or buy good items from other players. And this means that naturally, no matter what build you're playing, no matter how you're playing the game, you need to fit increased item rarity affixes into your character stats.
Just another reason to play SSF. Like I played a lot of trade this league. I normally primarily play SSF. I play a lot of trade because of the new trade system. Really wanted to try it out. And trade is really fun because of like chasing economics. But in terms of like the actual game, not like number go up, let me chase getting currency, let me try to print as much as I can. Like in terms of actually playing the game, getting to interact with all the mechanics and that, like SSF is just king because you get a divine, you're actually using the divine for its intended purpose. You get an omen of echo, you're not selling it to buy something, you actually get to like use it as crafting. That's why at the end of the league I will always make sure to play SSF at least at least in one full solid playthrough, because of how much I feel like SSF actually allows you to like engage with the game itself. It doesn't mean that it's like objectively better or superior, morally or anything like that. It's just, it means it's fun because you actually get to interact with the things. Because there's a certain level of guilt associated with like you get a currency drop and then you're like, oh, I would really like to take my Exalt and just slam it on my hammer just to see what I get. But like you're never going to do that if that one Exalt can literally just buy a better hammer in its entirety. So for that, like that concept is why I like SSF, basically.
And you may think it's not too bad, it's only a small improvement to your loot, but that's simply not the case. Increased item rarity makes a massive difference, and this league we actually have a lot of information coming out from various tests that creators have been doing. Farham did some tests with fixed character IIR running Zest encounters, where he tracked equipment drops, and came to the conclusion that character item rarity has extremely heavy diminishing returns beyond 150%. But his results also showcased a very large improvement going from 100% to 150%. And then, a few days after that, Crip made a video about item rarity, and he then spoke to the devs that provided some information to elaborate on these findings. And GGG have confirmed that there is an intentional steep drop-off beyond 150% character IIR.
Yeah, they actually mentioned this, I want to say maybe 3 months ago. It was in one of the interviews previous. Mark had confirmed that at a certain point, the diminishing returns, I think he said like 150-ish. He said something like that. There's like between like 150 and 300% or something. There's like a 1% difference or something. Like he had mentioned this in an interview quite a while back.
And that map rarity is a completely separate multiplier, which is something that we pretty much already knew. But map rarity also does not have any diminishing returns.
That they part, the maps not having any diminishing returns was news to me.
That the currency does upgrade in rarity, but the system for this, quote, is the most different type of system compared to the others. But we don't get any additional information on what exactly that means. So, to summarize these findings, improving your increased item rarity essentially makes you drop more of the things you want to drop and less of the stuff you don't. But you really want increased item rarity on your gear specifically because this is a separate rarity multiplier. You can't obtain this anywhere else, and it affects currency, and things such as the new Abyssal Omens, which also have hidden rarity by the way, which makes it so important that it simply cannot be ignored. Beyond that, the exact amount of IIR you have from gear is also very important. Going from 0 to 50% is massive, but ultimately you're going to want to aim for 150% because that's the sweet spot. You can't really make up for the difference in loot in another way, and this means that with this information now out in the open and with it confirmed by GGG, we're going to have a rarity problem when it comes to builds.
So the thing with rarity is the way it currently is in the game, it feels like resistance, which is basically like if you don't have 75% resistance, you're doing something wrong. 75% resistance within maps, at least, primarily, so I'm talking about, is more or less mandatory. I mean, if you want to keep pushing, and without it, you feel very punished. Rarity feels that way with getting to the cap of the 150 as like a rarity resistance, basically. And I think a lot of people don't mind the like having to have the requirement of resistances because you're building the strength of your character, and the strength of your character will dictate the strength of the content you can beat, and the strength of the content you will beat will be able to dictate what kind of drops you get. Whereas opposed to the rarity is like a resistance, but instead of making your character stronger and building around it, you're literally just getting yourself like access to like loot you kind of like, or loot that you kind of need is probably a better way to say it. And for that reason, I think that's part of the reason people don't actually like it, is it doesn't really contribute in any meaningful way that's noticeable to your character's strength. It just sort of allows you to play the game, is probably how people would feel about it, other than being sort of a tax on like suffix and prefixes on acquiring rarity. I don't hate rarity, but I've come to the conclusion, I know rarity is mandatory, but I don't like building around rarity and trying to like slot it in. Some people might enjoy the mini games of that. I enjoy the mini games of defenses primarily. Rarity is just not one of those mini games I enjoy engaging in. So more or less, I kind of just ignore the rarity exists And so my punishment for refusing to engage with that is my drops would just be lower, and you're welcome to have an opinion if you think that's fair or not. But that ends up being like what I found myself doing because of the position of Rarity in the game. I don't really like feel very strongly about whether or not I'm angry about Rarity. I kind of just don't care. I just kind of ignore it entirely and just don't build Rarity. I mean, that's pretty much where I'm at with it. If I happen to get Rarity on gear and it fits within the defensive and offensive parameters that I want, then I'll wear the piece of gear. And occasionally someone will ask, what's your Rarity? And I'll be like, oh, I have no idea. Let me check. I hit the G button and I look at my Rarity and be like, it's 40% or whatever, but it's never like 150, basically.
Not that it wasn't already a problem, of course, but I imagine now that every build is going to call for 150% increased item rarity from gear. Every build is going to prioritize getting this stat to that number, and if your build doesn't do that, it's bad. And here's the crazy thing. Back when there were discussions in interviews about life being on the passive tree, the response from GGG was that life being on the tree in PoE 1 felt like a mandatory stat.
True.
You had to path to it and take it no matter what. And to that I'd say that I actually don't believe that that was the case, but regardless...
I mean, okay, in hardcore I feel like I would pretty much always take as many life nodes as I possibly could in hardcore. But I played melee hardcore, which like not taking life nodes basically felt like trolling. So I definitely took as many life nodes as I could. So for me, I kind of did feel the way they're describing. That being said, I wish I had life on the tree just for my warrior in PoE 2 so I could feel mandatory once again. Because I prefer feeling mandatory by having to get life nodes as opposed to like not having life nodes at all.
Isn't this just exactly that? Increased item rarity on gear is a mandatory stat in Path of Exile 2. It doesn't matter if you're playing SSF or Trade League. You're actively stunting your character progression if you do not invest into this stat. In SSF, you will see a lot less of the currency items that you need to craft good items, and in Trade, if you don't have item rarity on your gear, you'll very quickly fall behind and inflation will leave you in the dust. Now, for me, the really baffling thing here is that Path of Exile 1's item rarity system never included currency, and that made sense because currency does not have a visible rarity. The rarity system in PoE 1 works just fine. In fact, it's great. You still have magic find characters that farm with massive amounts of increased item rarity, specifically farming the rarest unique items in the game. But you don't feel like this is a mandatory stat on any other build. In fact, rarity feels like a pretty terrible stat unless you are actually wanting to heavily invest into it and farm those rare unique items. Which is essentially the exact opposite of PoE 2, where this stat feels incredibly valuable all the way up to 150% on your gear, and it's so good that you just need to prioritize it even early on in character progression.
Yeah, I wonder, I bet there's a subsection of people that really like rarity feeling impactful, that feel rewarded for putting in rarity on their gear, and then when they see, demonstratable results for having slotted rarity into their gear. I bet there's people that actually like doing this. I don't think they're really wrong for liking this, to be honest. I think this seems like a preference thing in which it really comes down to the company to decide like how they actually feel about this. Like, do they want rarity to be mandatory or not? I mean, it's basically I don't really know if there's like an objective correct. Like, I don't know if there's an objective, like, correct, like, rarity should not be in the game objectively. It feels like, okay, what kind of game are they making? Do they want rarity to be mandatory or not? I mean, that's basically what this boils down to, right? Like, I agree with him. Without rarity, you definitely feel worse. Straight up, I just choose to ignore it, and that's how I solve that problem, okay? Because it's just like, I just don't want to do it. But, I also don't feel like, I don't feel like I can look at this and be like, this is just objectively the correct take. Rarity should be removed. Like, it's hard for me because there's also like tiers of currency now, and I kind of like the idea of upgrading from like normal to a greater, from a greater to a perfect currency. I think this is one of those topics which I would love to see a dev interview on. And if I get the chance to do another one, I want to ask about the rarity because I really want to know their thoughts. I want to be talked into what their thoughts are. I want to hear the thoughts on how do you feel about rarity. Give me an argument as to why the rarity is good, because this one feels like at the moment it's a one-sided conversation. I'm seeing a lot of people talking about how they feel about rarity. I tend to agree, I think, with like Kriparian's take as much as I can. And basically, he's making the same. I think Dreamcore's making the same point here, but maybe just a little bit stronger. I don't feel like it's the worst decision PoE's ever made. I choose to ignore it, but I do lean on the side of not enjoying it in its current state. I kind of like the take a Crip had of like Rarity is cringe. Like I kind of thought that was. I feel like that was kind of how I felt. It's like it's kind of a cringy situation. And yeah, I don't really use the word too much, but yeah, that's I think Crip nailed it very hard with his video. So I think in order to like move forward with my thoughts on it, this is one of those things which I really need to hear the devs' thoughts. I want to know, where are you guys at with Rarity? Why is Rarity in the position it is? Are you okay with it's in the position it is? And what's the argument for it? Like that's kind of where I end on this. And then I would go from there based upon like what their thoughts are. But without hearing like more information from them, it's really hard to get a take on why. Is it just a miscalculation? Do they not like the mandatoriness of it? Because they could like the mandatoriness of it. They could say, no, we really like that you feel like you have to slot in your gear. We feel like you should be rewarded for having Rarity. And then at least you know where they are in the position and why it feels that way. They could be very happy with the way it's set up. I would just kind of like to know specifically. Yeah, they might hate the topic. I see people in chat saying like they don't like the topic, they don't want to talk about it. That might be so. But yeah, I'd still be curious to know, regardless of whether or not it's a topic they're interested in. I like Rarity as a hardcore character because it comes with a cost. Yeah, like that's what I'm saying. I feel like there's people that enjoy the minigame of it. And normally I do. I say all the time I enjoy the minigame of defenses, but it's just not one of those that I enjoy. This one feels like a tax as opposed to a decision. It feels like a cost of something I have to do to play the game, as opposed to I get to get massively rewarded for a good decision. That's the difference that I feel about this one in particular, as opposed to some of the other decisions I make with a character.
I believe that item rarity mechanics should not include currency. It's as simple as that.
One of these chat points, because there's no power fantasy behind Rarity on gear. Yeah, I think it kind of comes down to something like that, man. I think it really comes down to when I make my character stronger defensively, I like to see how survivable I am. I like seeing that impact. When I make my character do lots of damage, I like to see bosses melt. And I always feel like I got lucky when I get a good drop. I don't often think, thank God I have Rarity. I got that drop because I have Rarity. That's just not like a thought process that happens, even though it might actually be that way. That's just not the response that I have from getting a drop. I see a drop, I'm like, yes, I got lucky. Not like, oh, thank God, there's my payout for investing in the Rarity. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like the correlation between I have Rarity and I got a good drop isn't connecting for me, which is probably why Rarity doesn't feel as good, because I don't feel the correlation between getting a lucky drop and having the Rarity. It's obvious that it exists, but I don't feel that way when I get the drop. Does that make sense? Maybe I'm not. It's kind of a hard feeling to explain, because I'm coming at it thinking back on my experience with having got these items. It's not really a topic that I've ever been very angry about or really, have strong feelings on. So I'm just kind of trying to think about how I actually feel about it, just objectively. And it just kind of comes to that, with me. I just tend not to really be able to correlate it well with there. But obviously I can see there are people that do, and that very much feel that way. So it's a hard one.
But what are your thoughts on the rarity system in PoE 2? And do you think GGG will change this system in a future version of the game? Let me know by commenting below. Thanks for watching this video, and as always, stay tuned and stay safe.
Yeah, Rarity definitely seems to be the kind of the talking point in the conversation currently over the last week. Crip's video was pretty good on it, though. I think I liked Crip's video the best on this topic so far, though Dreamcore typically makes pretty good videos. Kriparian kind of put it best, where it just kind of feels cringe to build. There's something funny about the way he said that, but that does seem to be about right to me. I like to see a way to drop a signal that is this drop because you have Rarity. That might be interesting. Yeah, maybe that to jumpstart you into realizing it. It's like a way of being able to recognize that your decision of going into rarity just paid you out. It could be that type of thing, because I can tell when I'm tankier and I can tell when I'm doing more damage. And Lord knows, I actually get more dopamine from like I just get a huge upgrade in my weapon. I build my weapon, I'm like, oh shit, this is sick. And then I go hit a boss. I'm like, oh fuck, you see that damage? That damage was way larger, than normal. Like that's more exciting to me as opposed to like I just got a perfect. Just don't like the drought of not finding any good drops. Yeah, I mean that's just kind of a ARPG thing in general, I think. It's very noticeable though. I don't understand how you guys can't see it. No, it's a separate point. Like I can notice the difference between having a lot of rarity and not having a lot of rarity. Actually, we did a whole live stream about this where we actually got a 6-man party, and it's extremely obvious you can notice it, and it's busted. But when I build it on my character, I don't feel the correlation of like excitement from building the rarity to achieving the items unless it's at the upper echelon of it. Does that mean, like, if I'm at the upper echelon of a super juiced map with a group or something and then it's exploding and loot everywhere, I can definitely feel that. I can feel like the juicing part of it, yes. But in terms of like, I just got 20% more rarity on a ring that I didn't have before, correlating that difference of experience is what I'm trying, and probably failing, to be honest with you, to like describe. It's that getting the extra rarity roll on my gear as opposed to, like, oh, juicing is hugely noticeable because of rarity and delirium. Like that's kind of where I'm at with it. You see it looking at your inventory after a map? Yeah, that'd be a noticeable way. I mean, you can see it that way for sure. Maybe it just boils down to like it's just not an exciting stat to build for me. It could pretty much be that simple. An item that scaled rarity with kill combo like Rampage would be sweet. Some kind of visual impact for rarity stat. Okay, here it is. You know what they need? If you see results but don't feel impact, yeah, it could be that. Don't feel the weight of it. I don't see the vision. You know what we need when I go to create my own unique item? Is every time a unique drops, you see the unique you would have got, it deletes it out of the game, and then it re-rolls it. And then a slot machine comes in, goes like, da, 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 and then like a new one goes. It literally does nothing other than re-roll the item that shows up again, and you get to see the one you lost and the one that shows up. So it's just, you can be like, oh, fuck, I got a headhunter, and it turned into like some dog shit boots. But you can get some dog shit boots, and it turns into a headhunter, and then you just have dopamine. Like, it doesn't actually do anything. It just re-rolls it, and then it shows up and like, re-rolls into something else. That would actually be super fun, dude. Mirror turns into an augment. Yeah, I know. Just a giant troll item. So I asked them when I was down there, I said, can we implement my item? And I dropped the idea, and I actually asked for party hats. I'm like, I want party hats in the game. They don't have any stat at all. They come in 7 colors. They're just a collectible that unique that drops. So it's just another dog shit unique to clog up the pool. But that being said, it appears on the first day. So on the first day of a league, you might get a super rare, like it's like tier 0. You drop. It's just a party hat. You get a random color, one of the 7 from RuneScape, and you got like a blue party hat, let's say. It's a collectible, but they don't drop after the first day of any league. So as the league goes on, they become rarer and rarer and rarer because more people are quitting the league with them in your inventory, which exactly replicates what party hats were in RuneScape. You know what I mean? You had, like, people had them, and then they logged out, they quit the game, they logged out with the party hats. They became rarer and rarer and rarer. On the first day, it might shove some dog shit uniques into the pool, I'll admit to you, but like it becomes a value item that only ever goes up in value because they literally become rare due to people quitting the league, hoarding them, etc. And it's just a cosmetic. So like that was kind of what I wanted for unique. I don't know if they're going to do that because they kind of, like, philosophy wise don't like these like day one only limited type of drop. Like they don't like limited drops, which I totally understand. But like it's literally the only way to do the philosophy and the way a party hat actually works, that mirrors the actual representation of how a party hat worked in RuneScape. It's the only way to do it. Literally, it's a drop, only happened on a certain day. After that, they're no longer in the game. That's how they work. So